Here's Archie's Travels, Chapter 40, entitled Archie Survives. Meanwhile, Archie was getting used to his surroundings. He had an old broken comfy chair to sit on, and he'd found a few stray biscuits to munch on. He hadn't been fed, and he was getting very hungry. At least he had the common sense to put water in his bowl. Archie was relieved that the big snarling Doberman was outside and chained up to its kennel. It had reared up when it saw Archie and bared its sharp, slobbering teeth. It was not a pretty sight. The caravan was decorated with photos of the owner and Rocky, as the vicious dog was called. Archie had no idea why he had been taken, but he was sure that it had something to do with hurting Dolly. He's a bad man, thought Archie, and as he surveyed the trinkets which littered the room, making it look like a second-hand shop, Archie realized that not only was he a dog napper, he was also a thief. Archie was beginning to miss Dolly, and he was getting bored and restless. He could only wander around the small caravan so many times, and he'd observed all of the trinkets and knocked a few things over, but now he was ready for a long walk. He caught his reflection in a big golden gilded mirror, and he did not look happy. Archie saw a tear fall down his nose, and he laid his sad head onto his paw, and he hoped that he could fall asleep quickly to numb the pain. Dolly and James made their way through the woods and over the bracken until they came to the caravan, and as soon as he heard the softest noise, Rocky began barking loudly and pulling on his chain violently. He was in danger of strangulating himself. "Let's wait for a few minutes," said James, "just in case anyone is hanging around," he said wisely. "Yes, we have to be careful," said Dolly. She was definitely worried about being caught. James didn't know what to do, but he was getting bored, and he went up to the door and he knocked, sending Rocky into a frenzy. Archie's ears pricked up and he started barking also. "It's me," said James, but there was no way in, and James looked round the caravan. He was looking for a way in desperately. The window was slightly open, and he climbed up and he prized it open more, and he reluctantly opened the window and he climbed through, looking like a skinny amateur burglar. Archie was jumping up and down like crazy, and James carefully scooped him up into his arms and out of the window. He looked so happy to be free, and his little tail was moving like a windscreen wiper in a hailstorm. Dolly rushed over, and Archie licked her face as if it was an ice cream. She was so happy to see him again, and she was determined to never let Archie out of her sight ever again. "We need to do something about Jack," she said indignantly. "He can't keep going round stealing things from people, especially pets," she said. James nodded in agreement, but he had no idea what they could do about it. "You're right," he said, doing his best to sound confident. "We need to devise a plan." "That's right," said Dolly, getting excited. "We need to catch him in the act, or nobody will ever believe us," she said. "How can we do that?" said James, and they both looked at each other, and it was a definite eureka moment. They knew that they had to lay in wait for him to burgle again. It was a scary decision, but they knew that there was no alternative. All they had to do was to wait for the right moment. Jack knew that something was wrong from the moment that he opened the caravan door. There was no barking, maybe meant there was no Archie. Even Rocky was silent, as if he was ashamed. Jack wasn't happy at all. "Some guard dog you are," he spat at Rocky, as he searched the place widely in vain. "God help you if the station hears about this," he said in disgust, as his face became redder and redder with rage, and he began to resemble a big red balloon that was just about to burst. Archie was Archie was swinging around and his tail was wagging, and he felt like he had just been released from prison. Dolly and James were smiling, and Dolly was so happy that for a moment she wanted to hold James's hand, but she resisted the urge as she didn't want to spoil the moment with embarrassment. Meanwhile, Jack was thinking of ways in which he could get revenge. He didn't like being gotten one over, and his pride was dented. He was pleased that they hadn't taken any of his precious goods, but they were intelligent and nosy, he thought, and they must have realized that the place was full of stolen things. "This can't get back to the station," he said. He had a reputation to protect, and prison wasn't a place that he intended to become his new home. He decided to wait and bide his time and wait for the right moment. He'd get revenge, he was sure of that.